you have the confidence that you can accept the blow.
As a point of interest, none of my men wear protection in the groin. None.
After all, you wouldn't want your attacker to get injured.
That hurt my foot.
Hey, we're live. We're alive. Welcome to Big D After Dark. We're so glad you're joining us on this Monday evening to watch and enjoy and celebrate some FC Dallas news and action. I'm the host here, Nathan J. Hill. You can follow me at Nathan J. Hill. There in the middle is Ismael Belcora at Belcora Isma. There in the end is our buddy Jose Carmona at El Chico Carmona. Hola. Tommy LaBeouf, our buddy, is unable. He has a family commitment tonight, so unable to make it. So it's just the three of us. And, of course, it's you, the viewers out there, sending in your comments, your questions live, or listening a little bit later on our podcast version, which is now available on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify. So, and we'll try to get it on Google this week as well. So we have a lot to get into because FC Dallas won. Oh, FC Dallas won that first win under head coach Nico Estevez's tenure in Frisco, and it looked for about 80 minutes like another one of these 0-0 draws, which isn't out of the question when you're facing a difficult defense to break down like Nashville SC, who defends first and tries to hit you on the counter. But FC Dallas played pretty well in this one, both sides of the ball, and after the 80-minute mark, were able to get a penalty kick. Paul Arriola earned that, and Frank O'Hara slotted it away, and then, of course, Alan Velasco, the super sub of super subs, just dazzled us on his debut. And so we have a lot to talk about, and, of course, you out there on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, whatever, send in your comments, your questions, your experiences if you were at the match, your impression of Alan Velasco in his first minutes with FC Dallas and in Major League Soccer. So let's just do our initial reactions from the match. Ismael, we'll start with you. What did you like from this match? What were your highlights?
We'll talk about Velasco probably. I think the main highlight is just how incredible the midfield is. Everyone in the midfield is just on another level this year. Cervania, one of the things that we've been worried about is because of Paxton likes to play on both sides of the ball. So we were wondering how would Cervania be able to do in the attack? Because we know he's very good in possession. We know he's pretty good defensively, but him, attacking wise, has been a subject of worry, especially during preseason. I don't think it's a worry anymore. I mean, of course, this was the first game where we actually created chances, and it was we looked really good. But if you look at the highlights on YouTube, every single attack started with Cervania. It's not even an exaggeration. Every single one. And I know Velasco's goal, Cervania didn't really do incredibly, didn't do much, but I mean, he still got the assist. It's still his assist. And I mean,
you still got it to the right person.
Yeah. He's still, he's been incredible. Paxton has stayed on that, really, on that same level of the touches on the ball, pushing the ball, the attack, the ball from the defense to the attack. And then Cerrillo has been the rock. Hani Mukhtar was second running last year to be MVP besides Carlos Gil. Mukhtar last year was incredible because, as you could tell, Nashville's attack isn't much. And when Mukhtar isn't lively, like he wasn't last night, not last night, last Saturday night, they can't do much in the attack. So that's all because of Cerrillo. Cerrillo shut down the two leading MVP, like the MVP and the second leading MVP candidate in the last 2 weeks, and it's incredible. And besides those three, it's Velasco, really. I mean, we're gonna talk about the goal, but that was incredible.
Jose, your initial reactions?
I'm agreeing with everything Ismael says, but I have to give the defense some love. The back line. I mean, I know we've all been kind of shaky on Martinez and we've been waiting for Tafari, but I actually loved how he was battling out there. That was a war he had going on with Sapong, right? And I love that. I love seeing that he wasn't backing up. I mean, he was getting his licks in. He was definitely getting, banged up, and he was returning the physicality. But Farfan has been a revelation on defense. You got Hedges, and I thought Nano played really well on defense too. I mean, they didn't even get a shot on goal, right? I mean, that's sensational. I know, yes, Cerrillo and the midfield also attribute to that defense, by the way. So it's the team defense as a whole. This doesn't even look like the same team that we were working with last year. I mean, they've been positionally and they're positional and they're cutting off the lanes and just everything has been clicking this early for all the our complaints stuff like that. The defense has been a rock to start and if this is just something they're building on, I mean, if it's not even set yet, you got to be excited about that.
Yeah, I mean Martinez. I mean, it showed a lot in this game, but I think throughout the year and preseason, we still saw a couple of like his negative tendencies. But the thing that's improved a lot is, and after every single foul against an FC Dallas player, he's there. He's there, standing up for his teammates. I mean, that's not a quality that can be overlooked. Again, it's very difficult for a player of his age to improve on the physical and like mental qualities of his game. But last year was really tough for him on and off the field. Not just the injury, but I mean, again, the first year for any MLS player coming from abroad when they've never been to the US is always very difficult. And I mean, that's why you always have to judge on a curve in that one. Martinez really showed that he can do the part. He can be the leader. He can be that vocal leader. I mean, we know Hedges is the captain,
Agreed.
but he's not the vocal leader. And I mean, Martinez being the vocal leader was not something on my bingo card this year, but he's really shown that he bleeds for this team, and it's going to be interesting to see how that develops.
Agreed. I also want to make one other observation is look at our defense productivity this week compared to the two previous weeks where we said we don't really have much. But this week, you saw a team that's closer to full strength, and when they went to the bench, there wasn't a drop-off. There wasn't a drop-off when Nanu left. There wasn't really a drop-off when Paxton left. There wasn't a drop. I'm just saying, as a whole, there was no drop-off. There was a drop-off with Nashville, a clear drop-off when they brought in the reserves. Dallas had no drop-off, and you could actually say that they actually played better, even better. And you can do that, against, by the way, one of the best defenses in MLS for the past couple of years. I think they've only allowed like 2 goals twice before, and ever since Zimmerman joined that back line. So this is no small feat.
Yeah. I mean, worth noting, one of their super subs, and I say super very sarcastically, is a $7 million striker DP that cannot start, which is kind of incredible.
Yeah.
I mean, agreed.
Yeah, I mean, the team showed we've already talked about it in previous weeks, that we lack that offensive depth, like a Franco Jara, who you can count on to come in and coolly slot away the PK, just like we saw there. True pro. and just disrupt and do the things that he does. I think he has a big role to play. I mean, still, $3 million for an offensive sub, and maybe not what you would prefer to spend, but if he gets the job done, he scores some goals and gets you some wins, then you're fine with it. You're fine with it. But then, of course, Alan Velasco. Here we go. Here we watch. Oh my Lord!
I cannot get tired of watching this.
There's an incredible video on Twitter. Someone from Dallas Beer Guardians who posted it, and all they did, they put the commentator soundtrack of Messi scoring that goal that he ran from like halfway, like a decade ago or so, and it's perfect. It's amazing.
Yeah, Todd's making the point here that Hara runs the pool and drag and make those defenders just hesitate.
The right kind of run. Right. That there to pick up if that keeper spills the ball. Hara was there, and I want to give kudos to Hara. On that PK, you saw that Jesus wanted to take that PK. You saw that Velasco wanted to take that PK. And Hara stuck to his guns and basically said, I'm going to take that PK. And when you demand take that PK and you tell everybody else, no, this is my PK, then you got to nail it. And he did that. So that. I love that. We all have had our issues with Hara, but let's face it, he can be a true super sub on here for this team. And we say, hey, who's going to be that double-digit scorer? Hara can be that double-digit scorer without being the starter. And I don't care if he gets them half of them on PKs. Who cares how you score as long as you score?
Well, we've had a few questions come flowing in here, and of course Todd had one earlier. What changed in the starting 11? And of course we didn't see any change.
He was he was being sarcastic. He was saying, "Hey, Izzy, what changed? Like, was it Ima? Maybe it was Ima." Yeah.
Well, okay, Nanu. Yeah, that's it. So, well, but I think it is still. We're seeing this team, and that's what we're hoping to see see this team grow. You don't want to. In Major League Soccer, you don't want to start out the year so strong that then you just struggle from that point on with injuries and things. You just always want to be building, getting better, getting guys healthier, getting guys fit, integrating pieces. Ben here's happy that the two offensive subs got the goals, and Todd pointed out that Hara's run on that Velasco goal, but it was just a special goal from a special player. There's the downside of scoring a goal like that on your debut is that we're just going to expect it every game now, and we got to temper our expectations a little bit.
Yeah, this is the Andres Ricarte theorem that when you score an incredible goal on your debut, your expectations are high.
Yeah.
I think that's interesting, Farrell. But the difference is that Dallas never seemed to know how to use Ricarte. At least Lucci had issues figuring out where to best play him. There's no doubt where Velasco belongs.
To be fair, it's the same thing with Brian Acosta. Scored a great goal, I think his second game.
This is true, but he was really not. I think you can say that both of those guys were not really creative players as far as players that you would expect to get goals. Yes, they scored, and they showed they could score in that fashion and set the bar this high. But then again, they weren't 19 years old either. So this kid, we'll forgive him if he doesn't score all the time and if it takes time, because we understand that the Alan that we see this year, it's just the beginning. It's just the tip of the iceberg, and I know it's exciting. I want to tone everyone's expectations down. I don't really expect him to be a heavy goal scorer, but I do expect him to. You saw him even before that goal, make that defense basically freeze, and he did make some other passes to other players, and really help break down that defense. And that's really all I expect from him. Is with him on one side and Ariel on the other side, they can break those defenses down. The more players that Dallas has that can do that, the more.
So Jose, you do see Ben here says, does FCD develop Velasco as a 10 or a winger? So do you think a winger is
the winger is the winger is the position of need. That's where I expect him to play, but I could see where people say, hey, who's going to rest? Who's going to come in if Cervania or Paxton need to rest? I could see him starting there, and then you start, O'Brien on the wing. I can tell you that the Argentinians will tell you that he can play the 10. He can play. He'll be an 8 really. Play this an 8 in Dallas, but he had 2 tackles in 26 minutes. He was one of the leading tacklers for the team. I was kind of surprised, like what? I don't even remember seeing those tackles. But the point is, people tell you he can play central. He can really play anywhere on that attacking third. And people say, who's our third striker? You could probably put him at striker too if you wanted to. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think flexibility is important, but again,
I think primarily winger.
Yeah, depth does matter though here, because I think Velasco coming here and being the starter basically fixes the depth at the wings. Like, because we know Sean is, we think Sean is good. We haven't seen enough to say that he can start in MLS week in and week out. And I don't know, my impressions of what Estevez sees with Sean is maybe he's not like the biggest fan of Sean, just based on dropping Sean for Khalil on the bench this last week, when Sean is going to the international friendlies with Hungary this month. I don't know what they're going for. It might be some.
They're international friendlies, but
yeah.
My impression is that that's why he got dropped, is because, it's like, hey, do you want a chance of him getting minutes and getting injured and then not going to the call up? So
I hope that's it.
That's my opinion on it.
Yeah, but I mean, you have Sean, you have Khalil, and now you have O'Brien. That's all depth that's serviceable in MLS. That's pretty good for depth at the wing. I mean, I don't think Velasco being able to play as a 10 or being able to play as a striker fixes the issues we have there at depth. Again, I know we can't have 3 deep on every position, and all those 3 players for all the positions are serviceable MLS players. That's unrealistic. But again, Velasco playing as a 10 kind of changes how the team plays, because the team doesn't play with a 10. Like even with a 4-4-2, it doesn't play with a 10. Yeah. So I mean, you could put him in the midfield, you could play him as a second striker, but it changes how the team has to play. And I mean, we can't really say if it works until we see it work, or see it happen. But I mean, I don't want that to be.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just saying it's Dallas can mix it up. That's what I'm saying. Mm-hmm. Is he has the flexibility to do that. You prefer him focusing on one position. I think left wing's going to be that position. But I could see Nico basically moving him around from time to time, just to add a different look. And I think that's what I'm getting at is, we've seen it before. I mean, when it goes to a 4-4-2, you could actually bring O'Brien as the second striker. I'm not saying they will, but they've done it in the past. And we've seen it in the past where you can put a really fast player, like when they had Barrios starting. I think O'Brien could be that kind of player, especially if you're playing more of a counter style, where you're gonna need those fast guys on top. I'm not saying it's ideal, but I'm just saying it's that or start an experienced player as a striker. I mean, right now our third best pure striker is in North Texas right now. So I'm just saying I could see some experimenting. Is what I'm saying.
Todd is coming in hot tonight. Boy, he's got some. He's having some fun takes here. Yeah.
We're just comparing their first goals. It's fun to see, because again, like the last 2 wonder goals of our memory is
he's been reading the
Ricarte and Acosta.
He's been reading the third degree net comments, which I've been saying they like to douse the water on excitement. Sorry, carry on. Just want to point that out. That was an earlier conversation.
Yeah.
Go on, Ismael. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, no, it was just that. Like, we're not comparing Velasco to Ricarte. That would be asinine. That doesn't make sense. But I mean, again, it would be great if he scores another goal like that again at some point in the season, because then that's like, okay, he's broken the curse.
And if he keeps doing that, I mean,
Yeah.
he's gone by this summer. I mean, like, who's there's just all those scenarios. So let's just wait and see. Let's give him time. I do think this opens the door to that first start this coming weekend, and so we'll look forward to that. So let's shift. Go ahead.
I want to defend Hara taking the PK's Bush League. Hara was known to do several things well, and PK was one of them. And the only reason he didn't take PKs last year was because of we already had a guy that took PKs, and he was the captain. So Hara was basically in the backseat. Now that's not the case. Now your only proven PK taker is Hara, and so ideally, you want your proven taker to take that shot. And until he starts missing, you should keep taking him if he's on the field. I have no problem with that.
Yeah, I had no problem. It would have been fun to see Jesus get his first goal just to get him going and build that confidence too. But I understood as well, if that's how the team has worked it out, then that's what you do. Well, let's just shift then. We've talked about the great things, and there are a lot of really good things. Were there things to grow on? And before we get to that, think about that. Where there's still things you hope the team works on, and we can talk about Nanu, his first start, and what the team missed when without him out there. But let's hear Brandon Cervania, just a quick little post-game media comment here. He talked about his performance and the victory.
No, it's definitely positive. Excited to be able to get the first win, especially here at home. That's huge for us. We're trying to win as many games as we can at home. I think that's going to help us, in the long run. I think we did really well today. Controlling the game, kind of controlling the tempo and creating more chances and finishing those chances today. So, I mean, overall positive, and we definitely have things to improve on, but it's a nice first step.
Overall positive. I mean, you could just see Brandon's energy just in that little short clip there of his reaction to the game. But yeah, it's still some little things to work on. So what are those little things to work on? I thought Nanu was okay in the time he was in. He's certainly, but he revealed what we know about him, what the scouting said about him. That he's a fast player, he's an athletic player, he's offensive minded. Defensively, okay, he can put in an okay shift, but he's not going to wow you there, definitely. Now, he may get better at that, but he was fine. But when Emma came back in, Emma definitely helped kind of shore things up near the end with his athleticism and his energy, and kind of lock down the result, so to speak. At
the thing about Nanu is that you could tell he's not 90 minutes fit. It was obvious. I mean, because in the first half, he had like 2 or 3 crosses that were exceptional, like better than any crosses that we've seen all year. None of them could really result in anything because all the crosses went to Obrian and Jesus, and they have Zimmerman and Romney in the box, so they weren't going to do anything with that. But they were really, really well done crosses, like pinpoint to the players in the box. Defensively, yeah, he didn't really do much. That doesn't mean he's bad at it. Again, him going against Portland next week is going to be interesting because I'm pretty sure we all expect him to start next week as well. Him going against Portland with the attack that they have, Yumi Chara playing, or the young DP that they have now playing. Blanco's on the bench, so there's going to be wingers that he's going to have to face that are going to come at him. We'll see how he does there. I still think, as most people know, that Emma is more than serviceable. I think he's an MLS starter. But again, if Nanu has the skill set of an attacking wingback, and Tumasi has the skill set of a defensive wingback, that we have 2 players that can be serviceable in 2 different types of games. Um, that's a good thing to have. I mean, it'd be great if it's combined all in one, but I mean, they're both very good players at what they do. So again, we can't take too much off of this game because again, he's not 90 minutes fit. But if this is his ceiling, which I doubt it is, then it's still workable. So it's gonna be interesting to see next week.
Yeah, I like what I saw from Nanu, and I agree that he faded. Um, I think you still see that he doesn't yet understand his team. You saw some of his passes look bad, but mostly because it's clearly more likely just miscommunication of where the pass was supposed to be or where the player was supposed to run, and that's going to take a while for him to get used to what his teammates like preferences are. And so I thought at times, even though he did consistently break into attacking third, he seemed a little lost once there. Outside of the crosses, of course. I'm talking about passes, and I think that's just something with time. I mean, that's something that's going to might take a full half season before that gets rectified to the point where we're satisfied with it. But right now, you got to be excited with what he brings to the table, and you got to be excited with Dallas going from almost having no reasonable starter at right back last season to now they've got two guys that you could start against depending of the opposition. And by the way, Nanu has actually played left back in Portugal also. So I know he's better at right back. It's his natural fit, but he's also capable of playing on left back. So I mean, this guy has a lot to offer. We're seeing just a scratch, of what he can do. And then, like I said, we gotta wait till he gets fit, before I think we can really see what else he can bring.
Yeah.
Because once the player gets fit, then their confidence level as to how hard they can go also rises. So.
Yeah, the only other thing that the team really, I think, can continue to grow in, obviously, is probably little things that Brandon alluded to, like, continued communication, anticipation, all those kinds of things. Just finishing, just getting that final ball, that final product, and putting it away. You don't want to complain too much in a game where you win 2-0, but it would have been nice to have a goal a little bit earlier to not leave it so late.
I'll do the complaining. I mean, I'm sorry. This is the one negative thing of this game is that Jesus has not improved from the second game. Which I mean, again, it's a long season, but it wasn't even just the missed chance in the first half, which was bad. But I mean, that's the same kind. Like Hara of last year would have missed that. I mean, it's not like egregious. One of the moments that I got really frustrated in was, and I don't want to like harbor down on like specific moments, but that one play where Areola won the ball near the goal line and like beat the defender and he crossed it low in the box. That's a kind of moment where Jesus needs to realize the situation because it was like 3 seconds from when Areola won the ball to when he crossed it, where Jesus needs to make that front post run. That's him. That's what the striker has to do. And he instead camped in between Zimmerman and Romney. And I mean, that's, again, he doesn't have that poacher instinct. He doesn't have that fox in the box instinct. He needs to have that because that's the kind of goal that the striker is going to get in this kind of system. Because Areola and Velasco, I mean, we've seen it from Areola. Velasco is going to do that. He's going to run into the box. He's going to beat the defenders one-on-one. Sometimes he's going to take a shot and score an incredible goal, but sometimes he's going to cross it in. Jesus needs to be in positions to do that. And hopefully he learns it. I'm pretty sure he can do it. He's got the talent level. It's really frustrating. And I mean, that's why we wanted him to take that PK, because if it's his confidence level, then it would have been almost fixed with the PK, we think. But if it isn't his confidence level, then that's kind of worrying because that's something instinctive that he needs to have.
Well,
I brought the temperature down.
No, that's okay. I actually wanted to point out something rather interesting, which I was kind of surprised about. And that proves that basically he's not really playing as a striker, still playing very much like a midfielder. Yes, he had 3 shots on goal and 3 shots and 1 shot on goal, which is actually improvement over the first 2 games as far as actually shot attempts. It's still not good enough from if you're going to be the main guy, especially with Cervania out shoots you, 5-3. But this is a shocking stat that I was looking at. He had 2 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 clearances. But these are not striker stats. He had better defensive stats than some of the defensive players or midfielders out there, and that's really the problem. The problem is that he's so used to he's playing like Rudy did in his final season with Dallas, where he was too busy dropping so deep to try to get the ball or to help out that he was neglecting his main priority, which is get forward. And I think you're still seeing that from Jesus. We're all still seeing it. He's still basically a 4th midfielder out there, and until he breaks that, I mean, it's a nice stat to have, but not the stats you want to see from your striker. It's like, hey, our striker had 2 tackles, 2 interceptions, 2 clearances. So that's great. What did he do in the box? Because that's what everyone's going to remember. So he actually had a good overall game, but at the end of the day, that's not what we want him to do. We don't want him to be that overall player. We want him to be, like you said, the guy that finds a way to score. And that's what he needs to be focused on. And honestly, that's something that Nico's going to have to figure out how to get the best out of him,
Yeah.
It's going to take time. It's not something that's going to get solved in 1 week or 2 weeks. And hopefully we start seeing Nico address that.
Yeah.
Maybe it takes benching him for 1 game and putting Hara out there and saying, watch what Hara does, because Hara isn't going to be dropping that deep, because he knows he can only drop so deep before he starts neglecting what he's best at, and he's not a fast player. He's a deceptive. He has some deceptive quickness when he needs to, but he's the guy who's going to use that in bursts. So I'm just saying the solution may be to give Hara the start and have Jesus basically say, okay, you need to start doing what he's doing.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. He's not going to get dropped next week. Jesus is probably going to play next week, and Velasco hopefully will start next week, which is then when we can make certain definitive statements. Because I think Lozano just made the comment that it might be because the midfield still struggles with getting him the ball. Might be the possible reason why he keeps dropping back. Velasco is very good at transitioning the ball from when he gets it at the halfway line to when he goes into the attack, into zone 14, into the winger areas. He's very good at that. So getting the ball from the defense to the offense might not be an issue anymore with Velasco. And hopefully Paxton continues to improve, because that's one of the things that he needs to improve on, is being able to get he's good at transitioning the ball, but he's not great. So as they improve and as Velasco starts, Jesus has less of an excuse to keep dropping back to try to get the ball. So
I agree with that. I agree.
If he keeps doing that, then not only is he probably going to start interfering with the midfield's ability, it becomes now that Hara's back, there is a legitimate player to put onto the field instead of Jesus. One that has a bigger salary, so his salary can't be a commentary anymore. So that is this is going to be a turning point. Now that Velasco is here and probably going to start the next couple of games, this is when Jesus needs to show that the first 3 games were just early season jitters. Because if it continues like this, then there's a decent chance Hara starts. And we know that can't last for long, because Hara doesn't have the stamina for that. So it's going to be interesting to see how the next couple of weeks turn out.
And I agree with that. I think that's the one thing I've said before is we got to wait to see what happens once Velasco starts playing regularly because he'll defenses are going to have to figure out how to stop Velasco. You saw them swarming him, 2, 3 players, and that's going to continue. That's going to leave players open. Players like Jesus, players like Ariola. It's going to make things better for the attack, and they're going to get added opportunities from that, and they got to finish them. I mean, it's honestly, if you start talking about exciting attacks in the league, just the youth and playmaking ability that Dallas has across the board. It'll be inconsistent, but it's going to be fun to watch. A little frustrating for us fans, but I think if you're a fan that's not an FCD fan, you're going to be like, wow, look at what all these guys are doing. If they can only figure out how to finish. But I think for FCD fans, it's a little frustrating, but still, I think it's going to be a very interesting, very exciting, if sometimes frustrating attack. I look forward to it.
Well, that's good. Well, we spent a good chunk of our time. I think we want to talk a little bit North Texas, and so let's just go ahead and jump into that. But there's so many more other stories that I think we'll get to talk about. Just like let's be real as FC Dallas fans. For once, we have an off-season transfer, a whole set of signings and trades that are pretty much working out, right? Like, gosh, I don't know what world this is or what if I should feel comfortable in this, but Velasco's look good, and hopefully he continues to look good. Farfan has been phenomenal. We just like gosh, what a trade that turned out to be, and I was pretty down on it because I'm like, man, Hollingshead has been I was hoping he'd retire as an FC Dallas player, but. And Nanu, it looks like he's going to be an interesting piece to have in the mix. So some good moves. Ariola, yeah, and Ariola's a leader on that front end, and just battling and just gritting out that penalty kick. It was just good stuff, So Ben says, "What version of the multiverse is this?" That's right. It's a good one for some of us, at least right now, but.
And you can't see the Farfan play in the first 3 weeks and not think that we fleeced LAFC simply because we were told this is a defensive guy. He's okay defensively. He doesn't do much for going forward. He looks like a good all-around player. Yes, he's been sensational on defense, but he hasn't looked half bad going forward. At least not from what I was told initially that he doesn't offer much. He's looked great, and he's looked great without Velasco. So now imagine with Velasco out there as the main guy they're going to be focusing on. I mean, for Farfan has gotten in dangerous positions. He's made runs that you want to see from a modern, left back. So I don't, the limitations. I haven't seen the limitations. I've seen a really good player who appears to be, getting into. Has been in MLS long enough that he's starting to make a step forward, which is what Dallas loves to find. They try to take chances on players that they think are going to make that next step. Farfan looks like he's making that step, and I think this is why we're excited. This is an unexpected. Another player that's making a step before we move on is Cirillo, who, by the way, after 3 games is averaging almost 93% passing accuracy. This is from a guy that, other than Matt Hedges, touches the ball the second most on the team. And what I like from this game that I'm not sure I have seen so much in the other game is now you're seeing him not only pass the ball forward, but you see him actually beat players on the dribble because they expect him to either lay off the ball and you see him basically use that as like a stutter or a fake, and next thing you know, he's pushing forward more. I really like seeing that this game. I like seeing Cirillo adventure forward with the ball. And that's something I don't think we've seen from him. So that's also another sign that his confidence is growing. I think that midfield confidence as a whole is growing because people were worried that we were going to get bossed around, and maybe we saw a little bit of that, at points in the first 2 games. But you got to be excited about all 3 players. Now I don't want to single one out. I'm saying that all 3 look like they're taking a a step forward as a group. And that's just not, even in your wildest imagination, you just hope one or two would make a step forward.
And we didn't even mention the goalkeeper, who hasn't had to be too. I mean, he's stepped up. He's done what he's supposed to do. He looks pretty decent back there. They're getting some good opportunity to look at him. I don't know that he's beating out Jimmy Marr at the moment, but he's been very fine. And luckily, the defense has played so well. He hasn't had to do a ton of things. But what he's had to do,
you got to start. You got to start thinking that gamble, that half season loan gamble, it may have paid off for him. I mean, he's played well enough that Dallas has to consider, hey, this guy maybe he's even with Jimmy, or maybe he's right behind Jimmy. But you can see that maybe after a year or so, Jimmy, like I said, you got a young guy and you got a veteran. You want that player that's on his way up. I certainly think he's showing hints that he may be a guy worth finding.
Well, let's jump over to North Texas, and then we'll close the show and we'll talk about the game against Portland. So North Texas SC, first game is coming up March 24th. The roster is coming together. They have about 11 players signed, including a player signed basically in collaboration with Bayern. And Bayern will get the first dibs on buying him if he shows promise. And so some exciting kinds of things happening there. Some collaboration, some loans elsewhere. I like the look of this roster, and of course, before the show, Jose pointed out that there are about 5 players from FC Dallas' senior roster who will spend a lot of time in the MLS Next League, including, let me make sure I get them all right. We got, of course, Carrera, Nicky Hernandez, Colin Smith, Benji Redzik, and Parker. Isaiah Parker, yeah, the kind of left back potential project there.
And I want to point out that it's March 26th.
March 26th. Okay, thank you.
Because the 25th is the first game of the league, and that's like a standalone game between the St. Louis and Rochester, and then all the teams play the day after. So it's the 26th.
They have a new head coach. And it's going to be interesting to see, of course, who else from the senior team may get stints there with them, and just to rehab, to get fit and things like that. It's always a benefit. Of course, some academy kids will be able to come up and play and fill in spots. So I don't doubt there's another 2 or 3 signings that are coming that they're taking a look at. So what are the goals for this? I'm hoping that North Texas will be in a position to compete for the hardware. They when they started with USL League One, they won the championship that first year. Why not do it here with MLS Next, right?
I mean, that would be great, but just seeing that they lost to Houston's MLS Next side 2-0, I think, again, that's preseason, but there needs to be a reality check that all of these teams now have so much freedom with roster building. It's crazy the amount of freedom that MLS has allowed this league to have. I mean, there will be times when an MLS side will send down a good player and have him just get his fitness up in MLS Next. So, I mean, this league is going to be way open. I mean, St. Louis is going to have – they signed a player from the German league, and he's going to come in the summer, and he's going to play for MLS Next. Again, so this – I really don't think we can make that many predictions with how open this league is. I think the goal is to have a player promoted from North Texas SC to FC Dallas's first team next year, and it's not a homegrown. It's a signing that they made, because we know that we're going to have homegrowns. Having players like Nolan Norris play very well in preseason, or Anthony Ramirez or Santiago Ferreira, they will probably have a chance to sign homegrown contracts in the next couple of years, if not next year. But the thing that North Texas hasn't been able to do very consistently is sign a player that isn't affiliated with FC Dallas, have him come to North Texas, have him perform very well for North Texas, and then FC Dallas have signed him. That's something that has been missing. So hope that's the goal. Maybe it's Mulatto because the guy from Bayern, because he's probably going to do very well here, hopefully. But Bayern's not going to start him when or if they sign him. So maybe he could slow him back to Dallas next year, FC Dallas, the first team, maybe. I think that's the main goal, that we see a player that isn't affiliated with FC Dallas Academy and have him play very, very well.
Yeah. The After Dark mascot, Drogo, is there.
Yeah.
Just
Made an appearance.
giving us a show,
Sure.
right?
Anyway, that complaint may be solved soon about North Texas development players that were not from the academy. Blaine Ferry is on the cusp of getting signed to the roster. It hasn't happened yet. I think FC Dallas is holding off, but it's very likely that he's one of the players from North Texas that will be loaned up to the senior team in times of need. So Blaine Ferry is a guy who's made that step up. He's looking better this season than he did the season before, and he looked great last season. Also, I don't know whether if North Texas contends for a title will depend on what FC Dallas decides to do down the stretch, because this should be a playoff team in this league. While yes, there are some teams that'll be fielding a team full of grown men. North Texas craves that, FYI. FC Dallas craves that for this team. This is going to be a U20 team, basically. And the strength of the team, and also its weakness, is the academy. There's this guy on Twitter called he is US Soccer 97531 who did a ranking of all the academies, and a great thread, by the way. He had FC Dallas third on there, despite the fact that and mind you, a lot of US fans, with their high, probability guys, are down in FC Dallas this year because they don't have another Pepe or another Paxton in the academy. They're looking at it from the U.S. men's national team. It's true that the academy doesn't have as many USMT prospects as they have in the past. But even before the Pepes and the Paxtons, Dallas was still churning out homegrowns. The Victor Oloas were out there, the Sanchez were out there. That's not going to change. Mm-hmm. North Texas may not have the best USMNT prospects anymore, because other camps are catching up. But depth-wise, the amount of players that the academy has that have the potential to be homegrown potential, say a Eddie Munjoma or a Benny Redzik or a Colin Smith, someone that goes on to become like a MLS lifer. That's still there. That hasn't changed. They're not sexy, gonna be superstars, be sold to Europe players, but the academy still has a crap ton of players that could earn time in MLS, or if not, go on to be someone like Damas or Arturo or Rayo, who's now, these are USL championship level guys, Aaron.
They may still make their jump at some point. You never know.
Yes, I'm just saying that's the kind of level players that are still capable of being found in the academy, and they have a ton of them. So the first half of the season for North Texas is rotate as many academy players as possible. This will lead to inconsistent results. They won't look super, but they're gonna figure out which players are ready to take a step up. And then when the summer transfer window hits, look out, because Dallas will then know which are the best academy players that are ready to play at this level. And then they can then go and grab players from either down from the senior team that aren't getting minutes, or bring in players like they've done before from college. look at all the college players that Dallas sends out. Some of these players may decide, come July that, hey, why not sign with North Texas? So the resources available for North Texas as far as strengthening this team in July are ridiculous. And I know other people say that other teams can do this. Not true. Not true. There's only a limited amount of teams that have an academy at the same level as FC Dallas and has as many players in college as FC Dallas that they can try to recruit to North Texas. And it won't be seen as a step down, which I think is a problem, by the way, that U.S. championship teams, I thought they'd do well at this level, but there are players that were on those rosters are leaving them in droves because they see it as a step down. North Texas doesn't have that issue. Yeah. They know the level. They know it's a stepping stone.
Yeah, I mean, one of the more important things is I think they need to go back to that academy-centric idea. We talk about how North Texas should be used like that. Let's just be completely honest. Last year's Chattanooga playoff game that we lost 2-1, there was only one academy player on the 18-man roster, and that was Carrera.
True.
I think North Texas SC, that's why I don't really like thinking about it as like trophies or playoffs, because that's not what matters here. I mean, we have some really good signings, but at the end of the day, I would rather have Isaiah Parker training with FC Dallas if that meant Nolan Norris could get minutes, because that's what matters here. Because we're not going to get those peppy talents, obviously. That's not going to happen like every single year, but those kinds of players need these kinds of professional environments. And I mean, that's why I'm really hoping that's what it's used for. Because at the latter stage of last year, North Texas SC just became its own team. They used FC Dallas players, but it was there was no academy players that really made an impact, which was different from the last couple of years. So I think restructuring that might be why there was this massive reshuffle in North Texas SC. I mean, we know that Eric Quill probably had ambitions, but let's be honest, his departure was surprising. We didn't think he was going to go. So this is I'm really hoping that it's not the same story this year. I don't think it will be, and I think that Nico sees this team as that kind of tool. But the performances we've seen from these academy players in preseason has been really good. I mean, I only saw them play against Tulsa, but when they played against Tulsa, even in that loss, Anthony Ramirez looked as dynamic as we've been told he is. And I mean, he plays for the Mexican youth national teams. Santiago Ferreira in the midfield was better than Waldeck, who, I mean, it's great that there's leadership there, but like Santiago Ferreira was really, really good when he played. There's a lot of center backs and defensive players. Nolan Norris is he is a very Farfan-like wing back where he has all the tools. It's not just one skill set that he has. He can be a fully rounded player, but these players need minutes. So, I mean, again, it's great the signings that they've made. We finally, as an organization, have benefited from the Bayern agreement. Like, finally, we get a player for that. But this is what this team should be used for. These academy players need that step up, and hopefully we see that.
So I just want to make an amendment to that. In its first year, SC Dallas gave the academy kids a ton of time. This is true. But when they made the playoffs, it was most of the players playing in the playoffs were the FCD players that were loaned down. I mean, just go back and look at that title game. That was almost all FCD reserves. And that's because Dallas isn't going to turn down an opportunity to play their senior reserves in a meaningful game with meaningful stakes. That's something they're not going to pass up. They're going to say, hey, okay, we gave the kids minutes in the regular season, but the playoffs, it's one and done. Okay, let's put our reserves in there, and they understand that, hey, something's on the line here. You're expected to produce. If you think this is pressure, wait till you get into an MLS playoff game, So Dallas isn't going to turn that down. To them, that's just another learning, and you're guaranteed that the quality of opponent is going to be better than the regular season. That's one thing. The drop off in the academy is you have to go back to COVID. When COVID hit, and basically the transfer between teams became a 2-week quarantine between teams, it made it almost impossible to keep shuffling academy kids around. And I still remember that season because Dallas often played on the road with only 17, 16, 15 players on the roster because they either didn't have none of the FCD senior roster players would travel with them, and only whatever kids were already there from the academy would travel. And so last year was kind of, it's not, you can't really hold it against them last year because, one, they knew this was the last year in USL League One. They already knew that. They're going to be transferred to a new, and the other thing is they weren't sure if the COVID thing was going to continue to stick. So they kind of hedged their bet by signing more players to their North Texas roster than before because they wanted to make sure that they weren't shorthanded. So they kind of did that on purpose. And now this year, you're starting to see them saying, hey, let's go back to pre-COVID and give these players minutes. And because a lot of the opponents they're going to face are going to be doing the same thing, it's going to be easier to stick with it than if you're playing, say, a Chattanooga or a team that's loaded with guys that are 24, 25 years old that are beating up, your kids. There's going to be other teams that they're going to face that are also academy heavy. And so it's not going to be a risk. It's only going to be a risk against certain teams like St. Louis or Kansas City's got a very, very like a U23, U24 team. There's certain teams that are going to be fielding a full-grown team. But a lot of teams that you're going to face are going to be right in the same boat as you. They're going to be fielding a U20, U21 team. And so, like I said, I expect them until the summer. I expect them to rotate the academy. The other thing we're forgetting is Ka doesn't know the academy like the previous coach for North Texas, and therefore he kind of has to give the kids minutes because he needs to see them. He needs to see what he's working with, and I think that's going to lead to inconsistent results. They're going to win some, they're going to lose some, because Ka has to learn what he's got to work with. He can't just be like Quill and say, I know what, the three forwards in the system down the line, what the U19, U17, U15, I know what they bring to the table. Ka can't say that. He can look at the table all he wants, but he has to actually rotate them in and see what they can do. And it may take him several months to get that squared away.
Well, I'm sure we'll visit again about North Texas. We'll touch base with them and kind of see how that's shaping up. Ben asked what age does the academy end, and it is a high school kind of, ends in high school. So
it's U19.
U19. So there's a point, I think, where some of those kids they have to make that choice. Do we go to college? Do we? What's our next step?
The only non-academy player currently with the team that I'm aware of is Seth Wilson, who's graduated from the U19. He's probably I think he's committed to college, but he doesn't have to do it for a while.
He's not. He left his college, like his college choice last year when he went to Portugal, and things didn't go to plan in Portugal, so he's back here. So he could go back to college. I don't think he will.
Yeah, I think he's still eligible. So, but I'm saying I think he's keeping his options. So there's no guarantee. He is still in camp, and so everyone's kind of like, is he or isn't he? But they did sign that Brazilian kid who's U19 to back up Carrera, who's 17. So I think that limits the possibility of that happening.
Carrera turns 18 tomorrow.
Okay, cool.
Okay, well, 2 18-year-olds. I'm okay with that. That's the way it should be. That's what you want from North Texas is. Yeah. I want to say that a lot of the players that they signed, I don't think there's too many players that are blocking the path of other players. Kamungo is young. Hope is young. The oldest player on the roster is Waldeck. and it really is an anomaly. Really, I think Nice is 23. He's a college guy, and other than that, I mean, the only other old players on the roster are any senior roster members that come down. Hernandez, Redzik. I don't want to accuse Redzik to be old, but he's old by North Texas standards. The average age on that roster is about around 19. It's 19.6, 19.7, something like that. And it gets younger once you throw in all the academy kids. So this is going to be a very young team, no matter what. And I think there's plenty of spots for the young players to get, especially center back. Left back is, when Parker eventually, I think Parker's only there at the beginning just to get him playing time. But there's going to be playing time at multiple spots. I'm kind of excited. Like I said, I want to see them give the academy kids minutes. Let's see what we got.
Yeah, let's see what. Well, go ahead, go to Ismael.
Pablo Torre looks great. I know he does. Because in that preseason game, his goal is incredible, and I mean, he looks exactly like Pepe. It's like the exact same striker. It's uncanny. It's tall, lanky, with still like a little bit of a baby face. It's incredible. Maybe he's Pepe incarnate, because I mean, he impressed enough to get a very decent contract, like a very player-friendly contract.
He's a regen. He's a Pepe regen.
Yeah.
I agree. I think one more note on that is I think Kamungo coming out of high school and wowing them opened the door for a player like Torre, and now I'm okay if this becomes an annual tradition where we sign some high school kid no one has ever heard of, but who shows he's got skills and maybe is just lacking that technical training that can make him a true professional. So I love it. I'm so excited about that. Honestly, I'm not expecting this kid to come in and be the starter but I just want to see, if he wows us here and there from time to time and says progress like Kamungo did, I'm all for it, man. I think that's exciting.
Well, let's wrap up the show. It's getting late here on the East Coast. Portland Timbers come to town this weekend to face FC Dallas once again in Frisco. Portland hasn't lost yet. 2 draws, 1 at home, 1 on the road, and then a win against Austin FC. Although a 1-0 win against Austin FC is not a whole lot to write home about in my book. But maybe Austin's a lot better this year. But Portland is an interesting team that can still do a lot of damage, and they've got a new face there. I haven't looked at him too much to see kind of what he brings, but there's a lot of excitement. They're always a strong side, always tough to beat, but certainly doable at home. You expect in this league. What are we thinking about this weekend? We think this is a doable match, or is it going to be another one of these ones where it's just slugging it out, figuring it out? Are we likely to see a draw?
Hopefully not. I mean, a victory would be kind of cool. I mean, I think the player you're talking about, Santiago Moreno, he came last year, but he didn't really play because Blanco was basically on fire. He's a very, very dynamic player. Like, he's very quick on his feet, very good in passing with his teammates, and like quick off and on the ball. That's the player I believe that Farfan is going to face. So it's going to be interesting to see how he fares against a player of his talent. Portland has issues at center back. Their 2 center backs this year are not the same starters of last year, because their 2 starters of last year are super old. So they're trying to do the transition. We might see those veteran center backs again. If Nashville was a win, Portland definitely is a doable win, because Nashville is way more stout defensively. And let's be real. I mean, Portland's got those two draws because Yimi Chara decided to do 2 bicycle kicks in 2 consecutive weeks. That's hopefully that doesn't happen again. But I mean, that's how they got those 2 draws. And I mean, against Austin, they should have gotten more goals. Like at the end of the games for those 2 games, there was like one-on-ones, like 5 different times that Portland couldn't score for some reason. But it's definitely a winnable game. I mean, another clean sheet would be great. Let's go 2-0 again. Why not?
Okay, why not? Yeah.
I think he's right. I think it's I could see like a 1-0 victory or something like that. But that's not my concern. My concern is, unlike Nashville, Portland is going to be physical and chippy, and they know they have a young Dallas team, and they're going to try to turn this into a brawl and try to basically unsettle. You saw what was going on with Martinez. That's going to be going on across the board. They're going to try to rattle the young team and sneak in a goal and walk out of here with a victory. And if they can't sneak in a goal, they're going to try to get somebody red carded. It's going to come down to how the refs call this. Do the refs let them play? Do they get card happy? I expect an ugly game where that attack, getting a goal early by FC Dallas, is huge. You got to get that goal in the first half, and you got to get Portland out of that. We're going to muck it up and basically draw this. Talk to the Austin fans. They'll tell you nothing happened in the game. There was a lot of nothing happening until that goal. That's basically the way that game was explained to me. Portland would be happy with that. Portland would be happy to just stall this game and make it chippy, make it ugly, and just, if you're seeing the kids complaining if you're seeing like a guy like O'Brien on the ground complaining to the refs, and that's happening to him and a lot of other players, that Portland is getting their kind of game.
Yeah.
We both know how to get those guys go.
Yeah, it is worth noting, one of the weak points from the national game was set pieces. Zimmerman dominated. Portland will do the same thing. Portland, like their center backs, the veterans from last year are huge. These backups are huge too. Tuiloma scored off a set piece against Austin. That's how they got their goal.
Portland will be happy to muck it up and get those set piece goals.
Yeah.
I think, again, it's a home game. You want those 3 points, and I think Dallas can get those 3 points, but they can't fall into Portland style of game. They gotta play it on their terms, and that's what I want to see. I want to see Nico. How does he handle a team that's gonna basically say, "Forget your playbook. We're gonna draw you into something you haven't seen in MLS before," and they're going to try to welcome Velasco to MLS and say, "Welcome to MLS, kid. This is the kind of being you're in for." Not just him. They're gonna try to do that to Paxton too. I'm just saying. I expect a truly, truly grueling game, and the sooner Dallas scores, the sooner it can open up and become more of a Dallas game.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm on board. I think it's at home. You got to find a way to win, even if it's a little ugly, even if you end up just scrounging up a goal. But I agree with you, Ismael. It's the one thing I mentioned on my my article on BigDSoccer.com. It's that set pieces was the one area where Dallas looked a little shaky. Walker was, you could say, unlucky, or it'd be just he had some chance or two, and of course it also makes you wonder if Walker was still with FC Dallas, what a pairing Hedges and him would have been. But hey, that's life. That's soccer. But I think this team still has things to work on, and we're going to continue to be tested. And the question is going to be: will they take that next step? Will they step up? How will Nico handle a different team? We are watching Nico's, his ability as head coach kind of unfold right in front of our eyes. So it's an exciting time. So let's hope for those full 3 points. And we'll leave it there tonight. Thanks everybody for joining us. Thanks Ben, Christian, Javier, Todd. A lot of great comments and questions, and some good sarcasm and humor tonight. We appreciate
Thanks a
you.
lot, guys.
Even had a guest appearance from Drogo, the After Dark mascot cat. So good. We'll be back, of course, next Monday night, same time, same venues, and you can also check us out, our podcast on Spotify, on Apple Music, or on Anchor.fm/Big D After Dark. All right. So thanks, Ismael. Thanks, Jose. Good night, everybody.
Thank you,
Good night.
guys. Good night.